Guys have the chat open. There's some people saying hello to you all. Someone named T. Matano.
Tom Matano.
Tom Matano.
Matano-san.
Oh yeah, Tom.
Hey.
The father of the Miata.
Father of the
Yes.
Miata.
Great guy. Too much fun.
Fabulous guy.
Oh, really funny. Who else is saying hello out there?
Oh, they could all hear us, I guess. Peter Habich says hello.
Hi.
I guess the show started.
The show has started.
All right.
Great.
So everybody's here. Hey, I wanted to welcome everybody to today's celebration of everything automotive through the eyes of three living legends, Lyn St. James, Jean Jennings, and Derek Hill. My name is Chris Gialanella. I'm the group publisher for Modern Luxury. We're a media company from coast to coast, and I am here to host you guys. I'm wearing my Richard Petty hat, which I'm pretty excited about. My beginnings in the automotive field started, my dad worked for Roger Penske growing up, so I went to all the Grand Prix races. So, hey, it's in my blood as well as these guys. Also wanted to thank Maserati and Hagerty for being a part of this amazing virtual fundraiser and being the best of what they do. So here we are. We're going to raise money for Parkinson's through Drive Toward a Cure. My friend Deb Pollack, who is a philanthropist at heart, started Drive Toward a Cure, and her mission was to raise funds for a cure for Parkinson's. Deb has spent the better part of her professional career representing small companies with big names and big reputations, including the likes of Mitsubishi Motors, GM, Ferrari, and of course, Maserati, as well as various concourse events throughout the country. She's created many rally driving programs and created events all over the country to raise money for Parkinson's. I'd like to introduce Deb. Deb, take it away.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Drive Toward a Cure is a nonprofit foundation dedicated to raising much-needed funds and awareness for Parkinson's disease research and patient care. While teaming cars and camaraderie with unique premium lifestyle experiences, car enthusiasts can enjoy some of the most breathtaking scenery and racetracks in the U.S. while driving all types of cars ranging from vintage to luxury and exotics. Again, all while contributing to Parkinson's disease. Since 2016, Drive Toward a Cure has raised more than $400,000 and operates as a 501c3 nonprofit tax-exempt organization. Founder Deb Pollack was personally affected by Parkinson's disease with the loss of her mother in 2006. As a longtime executive in the automotive industry and a longtime car enthusiast, she realized that by taking advantage of the emotional gratification gained through driving experiences, there was an enormous space within the automotive arena to further her cause for Parkinson's disease. With events ranging from Drive Toward a Cure's annual signature multi-day rallies to unique regional gateway programs in areas from Monterey to the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, all events seek to remain all-inclusive, from logistics and pricing to the camaraderie that ensues. Over the past several years, coast-to-coast events have included drives along scenic byways and skyways in the areas including Yosemite and the Blue Ridge Mountains, and include tours of private car collections and museums, as well as touring laps on famed racetracks. Even car clubs throughout the country have been creating their own one-day drives on behalf of the charity. But driving events aren't the only way Drive Toward a Cure raises funds. When the original 1968 Bullitt Mustang, famed for its featured role with Steve McQueen in the most iconic car chase in history, emerged from hiding to globally celebrate the film's 50th anniversary, the owner of the car, whose own father had been lost to Parkinson's, and through the support of Warner Brothers, Ford Motor Company, and the McQueen Foundation, teamed with Drive Toward a Cure to raise significant funds. A one-on-one hand-painted chronograph containing actual paint chips from the car was created for a global raffle, earning entries from 34 states and 12 countries.
All of those proceeds will go to the Michael J. Fox Foundation in my father's name. So this is one time I'm okay with taking a piece off my car.
The entire winnings, which were then matched by a fan that raised a total of $50,000, with the full net proceeds donated to the Michael J. Fox Foundation in honor of the Kiernan family, who had been the custodians of the Bullitt Mustang throughout the past decades. Approximately 1 million Americans live with Parkinson's disease, with 60,000 people diagnosed yearly. The combined direct and indirect cost of Parkinson's disease is nearly $25 billion, yes, billion dollars a year in the United States alone. Drive Toward a Cure brings the power of cars and camaraderie together to benefit Parkinson's disease research and patient care. In 2018, Drive Toward a Cure established its own California Wildfire Grant Fund to give back to Californians with Parkinson's disease that had been affected by the devastation of the ongoing wildfires. Through the Parkinson's Foundation, Drive Toward a Cure has created an Access to Care program for various regional centers of excellence for Parkinson's at renowned medical centers throughout the country. And most recently, Drive Toward a Cure renamed its funding to include a Special Assistance Fund, a grant-giving program that supports applicants with Parkinson's disease on a nationwide basis following catastrophic events. To learn more about the Drive Toward a Cure and its beneficiaries, please visit drivetowardacure.org.
Thanks so much, guys. I want to welcome you all here. And before we go forward on what a fabulous day we're going to have is I really want to thank Hagerty. I want to thank Maserati and Angeleno magazine. Without you guys, we probably wouldn't have been able to get all of this together, all the technology behind us and all of the great automotivism that we're going to be sharing. As Chris mentioned, I've been in the automotive industry a long time, and I've been a publicist in the automotive industry, but this has really been a passion project for me. And what I wanted to share was a little bit of an inspiration as to how I got started in thinking about Drive Toward a Cure, actually long before I ever really started thinking about Drive Toward a Cure. Back in 2008, I was working with Ferrari and Maserati and had the pleasure of meeting and getting to know Phil Hill and his family. And as we all know, Phil was quite the gentleman driver and America's first Formula One champion. But more than that, he was a family man and he was a really kind and personal gentleman. And what I found was that he had a lot more in common with me than just cars. Phil, unfortunately, was suffering Parkinson's, and I had just lost my mom to Parkinson's when I met him. And we decided that we wanted to do something a little bit more to bring the two of us together. That is, Maserati decided. And I was working with my colleague, Jeffy Hooden, and we thought, how can we honor Phil and celebrate his 80th birthday? And we thought we'd bring him out to Laguna Seca Racetrack, and we would bring a Maserati MC12 with us, and we'd spend the day with the Western Automotive Journalists Group. But the secret that we had was that we didn't tell them we were bringing Phil. We just told them we were bringing the MC12 along. And we asked Derek if he would come and he would drive his dad on the track. And it was quite an emotional day and quite a wonderful experience, because by the time Phil got there, the crowd started growing and people knew exactly who he was. And we got him into that MC12 and there was not a dry eye in the house. And it made us at Maserati at the time realize that we thought we were kind of the bookends of his racing career because of his first drive in that wonderful 250F for Formula One, and his unfortunately last drive on the track, which became quite memorable, in a Maserati MC12. And as special as that was, the story kind of goes on, at least for me, because we decided, unfortunately, after he had passed away, that we still wanted to continue honoring him. So we asked Derek if he would come back to the track and if he would be open to driving the MC12 again. And we would sell passenger hot laps in Phil's name and bring out folks that wanted to have the same experience that Phil had just had with Derek driving in the same car, same seat, same track. And in an hour and a half, we raised $7,500, all in Phil's name, that we brought out to the Parkinson's Institute. And for me personally, being in automotive, having known Phil and having lost my mom to Parkinson's, it was really quite an inspiration to go further with Parkinson's and cars and camaraderie. And that was really kind of the beginning of what made us start thinking about moving forward on this. So I wanted to share that with you. And I wanted to let you know that, today's a day where you guys can help too. My partner in cause, Mark Davidson, who hopefully you guys can see, has been a pal of mine for at least 2 decades. We worked together at Ferrari, And Mark was the first person that I came to when I wanted to start Drive Toward a Cure. And he has been the visual part of what you see. He handles all of our branding and our website, and any of the things that go out, they are all based on his creativity. And Mark's based in Toronto and daily helps us with whatever we need, and we're very appreciative. And today he's going to be manning the chat room for us. So if anyone is kind enough to choose to make a donation, if you'd like to share with us in the auction item that we have, I think we had a photo of that right before this one. I don't know if we can go back, but Paul Chenard, who is the artist with Automobili Art and a great friend of ours, created this one piece. It is a 11 by 14 illustration in watercolors that depicts Phil, who he had met several times in Rems in that very first Formula One, and in that, the Maserati 250F. So that will be there. Chris will talk about that auction, and Mark's going to be taking bids for whatever goes on. So stick with us, get to know our wonderful panelists. I'm proud to call each of them my friends, Derek Hill, Jean Jennings, and Lyn St. And the wonderful part about all of, I think, being in this wonderful industry is the relationships that we bring together. And they don't just stop. I mean, Jean and I go back to my early 20s when we first met, and she had her wonderful Vile Gossip column. And I think everybody knows somebody that knows somebody, and we all connect and we're all friends, and that leads us together in everything. So anyway, have a lot of fun today. We're gonna get moving on this. The last thing I do want to mention is that we're also going to be giving away a couple of raffle items at the end randomly. Lyn St. James is donating one of her books that will be personally autographed. And we also have a gift from Maserati. So stick with us for the program, and let's see who the winners are. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Deb. And just a reminder, we're really here to really raise money for Parkinson's. And honestly, Deb, what you're doing is phenomenal. So let's all remember that. We are going to start the bids on the Paul Chenard print at $250. So if you'd like to place a bid, be sure to put your bid amount to the donations and auctions tab in the chat area. You'll see that in there. Just make sure you put your bid there, and we'll keep track of it. I'll keep you guys on notice of what's going on. So thank you, Deb. Also, I wanted to get to the panelists. First off, we've got Derek Hill. Derek, you want to say hello?
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. Thanks for joining us.
Of course, we've got Jean Jennings.
Howdy.
Lyn St. James.
Hey, hey.
All right, well, I'm excited to chat with you guys, but before we do that, I did want to introduce everybody to Cass Rigas of Maserati. Cass, do you want to say a few words?
Hi there, Chris. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining today. I wanted to talk a little bit about Phil making his debut in the Maserati 250F and show you some pictures. As Deb mentioned, this was on July 6, 1958 at the famous French Grand Prix in Rennes. And again, this isn't an untold story, but this is more of unseen footage because these photos haven't been seen in quite some time. So I look forward to showing them to you. The one untold story that I learned from our historian, Adolfo Orsi, whose family used to own Maserati, about Phil, and you may know this, Derek, one of the things that really impressed the Maserati team that he worked with on that race was the fact that Phil learned to speak in perfect Modenese dialect. So he could communicate with the engineers and the mechanics that worked on his car. And this was something that really, really impressed the team because he took the time, and as Deb mentioned, this is the kind of person Phil was, he took the time to actually learn the specific dialect of his team as a way to bond and communicate with them. So that's my untold story. I'm not sure if anyone else on the panel knew that particular story, but that's a fun fact. So here's a few more pictures of the 250F and some specs and just, a couple different shots of it in different locations. Fast forwarding ahead in time, I guess, as Deb mentioned, Maserati bookends Phil's career. A few pictures of the MC20. We're fast forwarding to the early 2000s when this car was a limited production two-door super sports car in 2003. The production ran all the way to 2010. In addition to the dozen Corsa racing versions, there were also 50 units created that were road legal. And sometimes you see those around. I actually saw my first one in Long Island a few weeks ago. I'd never seen it before. It's a pretty amazing vehicle. In terms of this particular vehicle, one of the little known facts is that there was indeed a 14th Corsa unit built in 2014. It was assembled for the centennial of Maserati, and it actually sold for over 3 million euros. So that's a little untold tale there. And of course, as Deb mentioned, Derek took Phil for a lap in Laguna Seca in the MC12. Looking at today, and again, I'm sure you see the huge contrast between the 250F that Phil drove and this car that was just launched in the fall. This is Maserati's MC20. Some sketches that haven't been seen. And this car is the halo car for Maserati. It's introducing a new era for our brand, and it's going to bring us back to racing. So that's something we're extremely excited about. So yeah, and in terms of racing, I know, Derek, you had the chance to drive a 1962 Maserati Tipo 151, both at Laguna Seca. There were only 3 of those cars built. And that was a pretty exciting thing, both at Laguna Seca and Goodwood. And I think we're going to start with a little video to show you a little bit more about that. And then Derek is going to tell us about that great experience.
Wow, look at that. Derek, you there?
I'm here. Yeah, well,
Feel to drive the Tipo 151 at Laguna Seca.
well, you know, looking at that, every time I watch it, it gets my heart racing again, because that's what it's like to drive the car. If there's one V8 I ever need to drive in this lifetime, that's the one. I mean, it's got everything you love out of the sound of an engine and the torque and the power and the whole driving experience, which, as you can see with the wheel, I'm steering the car with the throttle as much as I am the steering wheel. And it's really a dance to drive this car, especially in the rain. It's been extraordinary to drive a car like this because it puts you right back. It's like a time capsule from the early 60s when drivers had to really wrestle cars around a circuit, and very different to the kind of racing I was used to competing in modern day with slick tires and high downforce. And so it's all about a driving experience and about as good as it gets. And yeah, it's fun to watch some of this footage again.
I love that one-handed too. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Well, I didn't even know I was driving one-handed until I actually saw the onboard camera. I mean, you're so focused on the race and not screwing up, because it doesn't take much in these conditions to be off on the grass. And once you're on the grass on a wet circuit like that, you're just going to keep going until you hit something. So I realized in hindsight, it was because the steering was so light. You could just steer it practically, you know, with a really light touch with one hand. And you wanted to be so quick on the wheel that I'd rather just have one hand to deal with than both hands in those conditions. And also for the quick shifting that you had to do. But I wouldn't recommend this to new drivers necessarily. It's not what they teach you in driving school, but it worked for me that day.
So Derek, obviously your dad is a legend in the automotive industry, and you know you grew up with your dad racing all over the country. What was it like having your dad as your dad?
Oh, that's a question I had been asked more than a few times, and I'll tell you, he was just dad. That was my only perspective of what a dad was, and as time grew on, and I got to gain more perspective of what he was really all about. My respect grew for what he had accomplished and the legendary life he had lived. And I just was very grateful that I got to experience going to races like Le Mans with him and be by his side at Pebble Beach at the Concours and get next to him in a race car and do some hot laps around various circuits. It was really just shadowing somebody who was living this extraordinary life.
It's amazing. And also, obviously, you do stunts as well. Now we've seen you in Ford versus Ferrari. What was that experience like, being on the set, working on the film? Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, that was amazing. I mean, anyone who's worked on a film will tell you that, it's about making magic for the movie screen. So it's long days and waiting around for the director to tell you, action and get ready and set up the shot and do it again and do it again. That shot on the lower left at Willow Springs, well, they decided we should shoot all the Willow Springs sequences in August. So anyone who's been to Willow knows that's the desert. So we were sitting there in 100+ conditions all day long for weeks. But the camaraderie with the whole group and knowing we were all part of a very special experience to make this movie made it all so worthwhile. It was an amazing experience.
Done some great things too. Obviously, you're in General Motors advertising campaign. How was that experience for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have to say that the two times I've gotten a call for the first time for a car commercial happened to be GM's biggest ad campaign launching the Cadillac ATS. And I was really thrown into the deep end because I wasn't just called on to be a driver. I was also an actor and I had to deliver lines. And we went to 4 different continents, shot 8 commercials, did a ton of behind the scenes documentary film. It was absolutely an unbelievably challenging experience, but one I was, again, so grateful for. And then again, to get the call for Ford versus Ferrari, somebody on the stunt team, I think, recommended me. I showed up at Willow Springs and they kind of were feeling me out. I only thought I would be there for a few days, but we all got on really well. And by the end of the week, they asked me if I wanted to go on and film with them at the next location in Atlanta, Georgia. And so, these things sometimes just sneak up on you and you don't know if they're really going to pan out for the long run. But if you do a good job and they like you, they keep you around.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we're gonna talk more, Derek, but I did want to talk to Jean as well. Jean is sporting a beautiful hat as well, and I think we have a video clip of Jean that I think we want to share.
Uh-oh.
Where's that video?
I don't think that I approved of that. Whatever it is.
Where was I?
Oh, that.
There it is.
When I left 4 months ago. We have been gone for 4 months, but we're back and we are better than ever. We're redesigning the whole site, but let's recap where we've been. Welcome to my driveway. As you can see, I'm poised to leave because I have a very special beast in the driveway today. Tried to match my pants to it. What do you think? Nice. It was very, very simple. Very simple. So Ray, this is what I'd like to do. Could you take me over to the house? And we need to go grocery shopping. Do you like it?
As we know, Jean has judged, crashed, raced, and written about cars for 4 decades. Jean, welcome Thrilled to have you here.
I'm really thrilled to be here because otherwise I'd be working.
Well, someone's got to work, right?
Exactly.
So it's really impossible to showcase, all your highlights in what, 30 minutes? Now, I understand you went from a taxi driver to leading automobile magazine success for more than 25 years. What inspires you?
What inspired me to do that? Yeah, it's pretty funny. Yeah, my dad was editor of Automotive News. And when we were growing up, we just knew that Automotive News came to the house every week, and that's what our dad did. We had no idea what it meant, though. So somehow I was the one who ended up with, I have 5 brothers. I was the one who ended up actually writing about cars. My dad was a business guy. So that, he used to bring home cars. When he brought home the first Avanti, and after dinner, he got all the kids inside the Avanti and took us for a ride down our dirt road, put us in the ditch, got us out of the ditch in the same move, and then said, "Don't tell your mother." So, that pretty much set me on a course for, high-speed driving and carrying on. I would just like to let everybody know I'm not really a racing driver. The only race I ever won was a demolition derby at the Chelsea Fair, and I had to wear a neck brace. And I ended up in a Car and Driver at the time. I was working at Car and Driver, wearing a T-shirt with my neck brace and holding my trophy. And I didn't realize the T-shirt I was wearing, I got from the Mac tool truck, and it said, "I get my nuts off with Mac tools." So that pretty much set me on a whole nother, that kind of launched my career.
You smoked cigars, you had whiskey with some of the highest ranking car execs in the world. Anything you could share with us? Any memories of that stand out?
Oh. I actually did do racing of a sort. I was Tajima's co-driver in the last Group B supercar race. And after we had been out and about, and after actually we had gone off a mountain, he and I, and landed in a river. But when I got back to where everybody was drinking, I will say that Juha Kankkunen came up. I was going down the hall to get my clothes changed, and he was coming the other way, and he picked me up and threw me over his shoulder and kept walking. And I said, "You need to put me down right now." And he said, "Don't you want to go with me?" And I said, I have a lot of those kind of crazy stories, but and I said, I looked at his eyes, and he's Norwegian, right? I think he was, yeah, with icy blue eyes, really looking at me kind of like that dead face. And I said, "I'm more famous than you are in America. Put me down." And he put me down, and that was the end of that. So anyway, executives, Bob Lutz was my husband's best man, and he bought my husband a box of cigars, and he bought one for me too. So that was all good. I don't know what else to say.
Question, though, we have a $300 bid on the Paul Chenard painting. So let's keep it going. Let's keep it going.
I think he started in the post office. I think that's what he did in Canada. And I also would like to say, I think Automobile Magazine gave him a really strong start, because I wrote about him and made sure he sent us illustrations. And I have one of his fabulous hand-drawn pieces of art that, it's on my wall in my living room. So he's worthy. He's really worthy. It was wonderful of him to donate this.
And Jean, you're obviously a good friend of one of my favorite performing artists, Daryl Hall and John Oates. But John Oates is a dear friend of yours.
He's a dear friend of mine. He's a great guy. You can see him, I think, up on this screen. But he's just a wonderful, wonderful human being. He called me when I worked at Car and Driver, and he said, "My name is, this is John Oates, and we're playing at Pine Knob tonight, and I just want to invite you." And I said, "Who is this?" I mean, it was a long time ago, so, and he said, "John Oates from Hall & Oates." And I went, "I thought that band's name was Howling Oates." And he said, that's really funny. So can you come? And I said, I'm more of a Pink Floyd person. I don't really think so. I have deadlines. And he said, I'll give you tickets for everybody, for the whole staff of Car and Driver. And I thought, okay. And I said, all right, I'll come. And I'll tell you, we sat down in really nice seats facing the stage. And every song they played, I said, they do that? That's them? Oh my God. And we have been friends for more than 35 years.
That's
More than
exciting.
35 years. He's a
Here's
wonderful
something
person.
exciting to share for us, right? For
Pardon?
another donation item? Do you have another
Oh
item?
my gosh. You know, I was telling you guys about it and I'm all for it. I took it off my wall. You know, I've had a lot of great adventures. The key to my success is just having wild adventures. It has nothing to do with car reviews, I promise you. So what I found on my wall in my stack of many, many pieces of art, if I hold this up, can you see it? So I'll just tell you what it is. This is a poster, and the artwork was done by Bill Neal, who was also famous for the Terlingua, the Team Terlingua and the chili cook-off, a great friend of Carol Shelby's, great artist, and he's gone, he's not with us anymore. But he did this piece to commemorate Carol's Palm Springs reunion in 1989. And these were the principles that were part of the Ford versus Ferrari team and that event. So the principles that came for this reunion were John Wyer, Roy Salvadori, Dan Gurney, Bob Bondurant, Phil, and Carol. And I was there for that. And I really kept it together, and I did not moon any of them. I mooned Bill Neal, the guy who was the artist. And anyway, this is a wonderful signed poster from Carol. So Carol did the big signature. Bill's signature is down here, but this is a little bit of a little smudge on the paper in there. So
What do we think? Should we start the bidding at $100 for that?
yeah, you know, it's a Carol signed it. And I don't know if you'll ever see this particular poster anywhere ever again. So I think that's worth it. And
Yeah,
I'm
and
willing
Jean will
to
ship it
start
right
with
to you as well.
Pardon?
We'll ship it out to the winner.
Yeah, that would be great. That'd be wonderful.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My husband's extra happy. I have one more thing out of the house.
Well, but to be signed by Carol Shelby, that's pretty
Yeah.
special. And to commemorate the original Ford versus Ferrari event, that's even twice as special. So thank you, Jean.
And it was right before John died. John Wyer died right after that. No one could believe he made it to this event out in Palm Springs. So it was wonderful.
That's fantastic.
My lucky.
Well, without further ado, we have another video to show. Why don't we roll the video for Lyn St. James?
Back to yesterday and take a look at a run that electrified this track, that of Lyn St. James. This is the final lap for Lyn St. James, averaging 224 miles an hour. And she ran lap 3 at 224 flat. But she has the very real possibility, Bobby, of pushing Nigel Mansell one position down.
Well, she certainly does, Paul. And this pretty young lady is just making about as pretty a line around this racetrack that you're ever going to see. She's really doing it right.
Up to the north end for the last time.
She ran all the laps, just very good, very aggressive, but a great line. She had a tremendous line through 4, never put a foot wrong. She was always on line and very consistent run.
She just goes from the wall right down to the white line, touches it right back out. She never jerks the steering wheel. Looks perfect.
4 laps at 224.1, and she qualifies faster than Nigel Mansell. So Lyn St. James with a spectacular third qualification at Indianapolis. Here's Jack.
There she is. Well, Lyn St. James, first of all, 4 very, very consistent laps, but then on top of all of that, faster than Nigel Mansell.
I hope I didn't give him indigestion, but I was flat all the way around, and this was a great car, I'll tell you. It was so neat to come back here for the 3rd time and feel confident.
How difficult is it, Lyn, for you? How difficult is it for you to have to come with a one-off ride like this and be able to crank it on as quickly as you did?
Well, it's tough, but I'll tell you, when you got a great team and a great race car, it ain't so tough. And I've got a lot of preparation, which you probably have been reading about. So, you know, I've got a great team even back in Daytona Beach to help me.
Congratulations.
A lot.
So with that run, Lyn St. James qualified to the outside of row 2. Her 4 laps varied by only 4/100ths of a second.
There's only one American racing legend that can boast winning the Indy 500 Rookie of the Year and then continuing on to compete in 15 IndyCar races and 7 Indy 500s. And last week, Lyn, you were just inducted into the Sebring Hall of Fame. How are you, Lyn? How do you do all this stuff?
I haven't seen that footage, I don't think, in a long, long time. That's really amazing to watch. Well, before I answer that, I really want to thank Deb for inviting me to join my friends, Derek and Jean, for a really important cause. You know, I got to meet Phil. Derek, I don't even know if you know this. I met Phil very briefly at Goodwood. It was the Friday night party that Lord March you know, has, and Phil was coming, and I was at the steps there, and I met him and your mom Alma, and I mean, he started flirting with me. It was so cool. I mean, just to have this sort of interaction. You don't get to meet your heroes very often, and to meet him was it was truly an honor and something I will never forget. And I just want to also mention on the Maserati part that I got to go in 2017. I took a trip to Italy, and I got to tour the Maserati factory and also the private collection, the Panini collection. And so I'm a great admirer of the Maserati, particularly that 250F. I mean, it's just, it's a beautiful car. We had it here in Phoenix in our Legends of Speed display. Anyway, you know, Chris, I love the sport. It became the thing that happened to me in my life that changed my life. I was kind of a typical, probably, you know, in my 20s, wondering, is that all there is? Working hard, trying to do everything society expects you to do, and being a good girl. And then I went to the races, and then I found out, you know, that I like to drive. I knew I liked to drive fast, and the people having the most fun at the racetrack were the drivers, as far as I was concerned. I got tired of making sandwiches and doing timing and scoring, and so I got behind the wheel of my first race car, which was a Ford Punto, which was my street car that I drove back and forth to work. And it's I've never looked back. It's something that I love to do more than anything else. And I've been doing it ever since. And so 40 plus years, you know, driving some amazing race cars all over the world for some great teams, and getting to meet great people. And, you know, and then have kind of worked hard to make a difference as well for other up and coming drivers, particularly because, you know, it's a very difficult sport. The driving it becomes the easiest part once you kind of get a handle on it, but then you never stop learning. But it's all those other things you don't know. And so I've spent, you know, a lot of time trying to share that knowledge and the information and the contacts and the people to be able to help other drivers coming up. But I'm just having a blast, and I feel blessed to have found something that was what I was meant to do in this world.
You know, you're such a mentor to so many, Lyn. You really are, men and women. You know, I think everything you've done is just phenomenal, and we're so proud of you, and we're thrilled to have you here. So many questions are popping up. Dean had asked from you, who do you see the next generation of racing stars? Who do you think they are in your eyes?
Ooh. Well, there's some gals out there for sure. You know, Sabre Cook is really working on her open wheel career. Hannah Grissom is working on her sedan and hoping to maybe even go to open wheel. And obviously right now all eyes are on Hailie Deegan in the NASCAR world. But, you know, I got to start going to some go-kart. When we can get back to going places again, I want to start going to some go-kart races and just seeing where that rich young talent is. Quarter midgets and go-karts is kind of the proving ground for that. And then going to some of these driver schools to be able to see, because, you know, that's how you sometimes transition into another car after you've raced whatever it is you're racing. So there's stars out there, but it's hard to just sort of, you know, dribble. I'm not going to give you that because I don't know who they all are yet.
But
Jean, what you got?
I would say that you have spent a lot of your lifetime helping women not only learn how to drive the cars, but to act, to dress right, to speak right, to get how to get sponsorship. And you have helped so many women. You're my goddess. You are a goddess.
Jean, thank you.
I might start crying.
Yeah. Make me
Well,
cry.
on that
Known you
note,
for a long time, and you have just been an outstanding human being.
Thank you.
on that note about goddesses, I'd like to bring up another female automotive legend goddess that is a wonderful part of, I think, all of our lives and was. Denise McCluggage is a very, very special friend and was a very special friend to all of us. I've known Denise since I was in my early 20s, but then furthered our connection much later on because of her friendship with Phil. And it's funny how relationships work in the car industry and everywhere, because the picture that you're looking at now, this is on the wall of Michael Ricciardi's European Motorsports collection out in Boston. And she came to do a special event there, and on the wall, full size, as you can see, are those two very special portraits that were also done by artist Paul Chenard. And I did not know Paul at the time. And I saw this picture, and Denise and I were Facebook friends. And I noticed that Paul was a part of this. And I texted him and I said, "Isn't that Phil Hill in the right side?" And he said, "Yes, it is." And I said, "And how do you know Denise?" And he says, "Well, I know Denise knows Phil, and I know that I know Phil, and we've done all these things. And if you're friends with them, then I should be friends with you." And that was probably, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 years ago that I first met him. And we were friends for probably 5 years through Facebook before we ever met personally, because he's from Halifax, Nova Scotia. And then I invited him out to a concours to do some of his on-the-spot drawing for cars. And he made a donation through that. And we've been friends ever since. And the very first drive that I ever did, we had also recognized Phil at, and there was an illustration that he did for the decals that we put on everyone's car that had a wonderful picture of Phil that he had illustrated. So full circle, it went around all because of Denise, when she didn't even know she was setting up this relationship. But then separately, I know all of you have had wonderful stories and times with Denise. And I'd really like to focus on that a bit, because she's such a wonder as an automotive legend, and she's missed so much. So maybe you each can give us a little bit of a memory or something special about Denise, please. Jean, why don't you go first?
Oh my gosh. So I had just started at Car and Driver, but I knew who she was. I found out who she was. And I was going on a Volkswagen press trip. And I just called the hotel front desk and asked what her room number was. And I called her in her room. And I said, "You don't really know me at all, but would you like to have a drink before dinner?" And she said, "I sure would. I'm glad you called." We went downstairs, we had a drink, and then we paired up together. And that's the way it always was. If we were on a trip together, a press trip, we would pair together. So there was this was a Volkswagen trip. And it was the new Golf. It was a new Golf. And we had to drive to Austria. The minute we got off the plane, they wanted us to drive from Germany to Austria. So together, there we were. So we jump in this car, put our stuff in the back, hit the Autobahn flat out, and I'm smelling something. It smells a little weird, like electrical, like. And I said, "You smell that?" She said, "I don't smell anything." And then she's like, "Yeah, we're going down the Autobahn flat out." And I said, "I swear I smell something odd." And we come around a turn. She was driving out. She was always the driver. And she was driving flat out. And we come around a turn and the whole Autobahn stopped. She slams on the brakes and the car bursts into flames. So I look at her, I go, "Exit stage right." We both step out of the car, and we're surrounded by parked cars. The car is burning furiously right through the hood. So someone at the factory had forgot to screw the oil cap back on after they changed the oil. So it had sprayed everywhere. The whole thing was on fire. We pulled our suitcases out. We're standing in the median watching cars inch by, and one of the other journalists sees us and he's like, what in the hell? So we jump in the car and show up and the PR guy, who's gone now, said, what are you guys doing? Where's your car? And I went, oh, it burned down. And I tried to walk into the hotel. And he goes, what? And I go, not kidding. And went in. And so we were, I mean, it was always us together after that. I was there 2 days before she died. I was with her 2 days before she died. And we spent the first night with her just telling stories and us laughing and laughing and laughing. And never occurred to me, because she was my friend, it never occurred to me to take a video or to, capture any of that. But just to be there was the most magic thing. She was wearing a t-shirt, a sweatshirt, and it had an upside down cow on it. It said, I'm fine. No, really, I'm fine. And that was Denise, who...
Yeah. And Derek, you knew Denise as well. Do you want to share any fond memories that you have?
I mean, I loved your recollections, Jean. And yeah, anyone who knew Denise knew she was a groundbreaker, just like Lyn was and is. She was on the scene in a sport, of course, dominated by men, but was just right there in it as a talented driver and a great journalist. I loved her ways with words. She was really so philosophical, so witty. And I'll never forget going to visit her to film an interview. I've been working for a long time just on a documentary about my father. And so I had to talk to Denise, and went out to Santa Fe and spent 2 days there. And I could have gone on for 2 more days, just talking about everything. She had such a great insights and always with a great sense of humor. And one thing I love she had said about my dad was that, he was somebody who needed things to be a little bit uncomfortable to be at his best. And she called it like racing for Enzo Ferrari, being on a bed of nails. And that's where he was most comfortable. She said a Tempur-Pedic mattress would have killed him. And she'd always leave you with something like that would let you think. And she's so dearly missed. I love her photographs, her stories, everything about what she represented.
Mixed suitcase, that's what she'd say, mixed suitcase. And right when I saw her when Lyn and I were down in Santa Fe at the event, and we were trying to pick a car that Denise would approve of. But she went to get her suitcases from the carousel that when they had come in. And I think it was a Tim Considine who had picked them up off the carousel and was wheeling them along behind her. And she said, oh, look how clever. They've learned how to follow us. The suitcases. She was always just making the wittiest jokes. Was a great person, and everyone loved her.
Lyn, tell us a story you have, a nice memory you have of Denise.
Well, there's a couple. The first time I met her was at a Ford event. Ford had set up this Mustang promotion in a parking lot, and said there was this woman driver who I was going to be competing against, and Denise showed up, and I'm like, she was older and kind of portly, and I'm sort of like, who is that? I mean, I didn't know who she was at that time, and well, obviously I won, but she still kicked she showed me who Denise was, and this was very early in my Ford contract and my Ford relationship, and that's when I started to really understand about how we stand on the shoulders of others. I mean, she was witty, but she's just behind the wheel. She was an animal. I mean, she just got it done. And I was just fortunate to then start to study the women that had raced and come before me and before Janet and before the ones that we knew about. And I got to know her through the Santa Fe Corso that she created and got to hang out with her a little bit. But the most special part to me for Denise was to observe her because of the way people treated her and the way she interacted. I always wanted to be within earshot, not that I was, But anyway, I wanted to hear those great witty things that she said, and I loved her writing. And the one regret I have is that I didn't get to know her better. She wasn't somebody that I could warm up to, and it was really kind of hard. I don't know. I just wish I'd gotten to know her better. So I just admired her, and I love that picture up in the corner there of myself with Denise and with Elma. You know, so at least it was somebody that I knew made a difference in this sport for women in many, many different ways, as well as a great writer. But she definitely kicked butt.
Thank you, Lyn.
I wasn't fit to hold her pen. Great writer, nothing. I mean, whoa.
Go back to the bids. The Chenard print is at 300 and the Shelby print is at 150. So please, let's see if we can get those numbers up. Make a donation if you'd like as well. And we are going to start the Q&A session. If anyone has any questions, feel free to type them into the Q&A, or if you want to type them into the webinar chat, we will get to those. There is a question for you, Lyn, from Kevin. He wants to know if you have any thoughts on the F1 efforts to promote women, especially Lewis Hamilton.
Well, definitely have thoughts on that. I was excited to see that the Formula One has announced that they are going to have the W Series, the women's series, run as a support race in I think 8 of their races in 2021. So I think that's going to just put more eyeballs on something that to show that women are very, very capable and that there's enough women. I mean, it's a whole series now. So you're going to have 22, I think it's 22 cars out there with females driving. I remember when with Don Panos, we started the Women's Global GT Series, and the first comment that people made is, will there be enough women? I mean, it's like, so that's going to be a huge, I think, statement for women. And Lewis Hamilton has put himself in his powerful, he's got a powerful position, and he could just use that to keep the spotlight on himself, or he could use it, as he is now doing, is to put spotlight on things where he knows he can make a difference and get the attention of the industry, of the sport, of the media, of everybody. And he's doing it for the Black Lives Matter, and he's also including women. I mean, we are, even though we represent over 50% of the population, we're still considered the minority and diversity, whatever. So I think the sport, it's better to have Lewis Hamilton speaking the way he is than to have Bernie Ecclestone saying that, we need to be driving white cars like, refrigerators. So,
yeah. Derek, there was a question for you from Jeffrey. I want you to talk about the history of the 151 and the work done dialing it in. And it was somewhat of an unfinished product, as he recalls.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm no Maserati historian, but I did know going in to drive that car that this particular model, the Tipo 151, which was often the case back in the early 60s, where, oh, here's what just came out with Ferrari, and they're all rushing to get to Le Mans. They're all, in a scramble to get these cars together. And this had a very unique rear axle situation with a DD-on rear axle. And just the geometries of it made it a little bit scary to drive back in the day. The car I drove was serial number 004. I think only 3 of them were made, and run by Briggs Cunningham. And you had guys like Bruce McLaren run it, and Walt Hankston, and just various drivers of the day. Racing back then was lethal, and drivers were dying all the time. And I had heard that in 2 of the 3 Tipo 151s, they were in fatal accidents. That gave me a lot of confidence going in to drive this vintage race car. However, here we are in the modern age with engineering and have learned so much. And the engineers showed me exactly what they had done to fix the nuances, which made this car do some nasty things at high speed. And sure enough, it was a joy to drive. And I felt like we took the sort of unproven history of the Tipo 151 and gave it its day to shine, and gave it some success, and kind of resurrected it, because it sort of had gone away in the history books, a little bit tainted. And when we showed up to Goodwood, it really turned everybody's heads, and it was like, wow, because this car is just an absolute monster, but with such sleek lines.
That's great. Here's another question from Doug Clark. We must do all we can do to bring young people into our world and love for cars. What ways have you found successful to do this? Who wants to take that one? The love of cars. Who wants to know our world and love for cars? What ways have you found successful to do this? How are you keeping young people engaged in car racing?
Well, I know that Lyn is, I'll just say really quick. I'm so grateful to be amongst such powerful women on the meeting between Lyn and Jean and Deb. My goodness, what inspirations for the love of cars, especially to come from women. And I'm honored to be in this group. And I know that they could speak to that more than I can for the amount of people they've inspired. But thank you all for letting me be in this group.
Well, it's great to have you. Believe me, you belong with us. But you know, I think women need to be invited in life. I mean, in society. There's a philosophy that I have. Men just show up. You know, they'll crash a party. It doesn't have to be invited. A bunch of women are talking, and they'll say, "Oh, you know, you're going to this or that." Well, I wasn't invited. You know, and so I think it's a subtle difference that often prohibits women from thinking that they are either invited or welcomed in these automotive oriented things. And I think we are now finding that women love cars. There's a lot of women who love cars just as much, if not more so than men. So I'm not always thinking about young women necessarily. I mean, I'm more focused on the young women in racing because the sport wants young. I mean, if you're 22 years old and you haven't figured out how to be successful in racing, and meaning on the racetrack and get the attention of others, the likelihood, and Derek, it's sad, but you know, it's just drives me crazy, but that's the way the sport is. But I think to get more young people, but also more importantly, more women, I think there's women events happening now. I remember I did an event out of Bondurant called Women Who Have the Need for Speed. And I mean, we were oversubscribed. I had more women signing up than had cars. So I just think women need to be invited to more events and feel welcome. And I see that happening. And I see it happening more and more. I know that my friend Cindy Sisson has created a company called GS Events, and they've got now a monthly Zoom call for women called Switching Gears. And it's all about women sharing their automotive life and experiences. So there's more and more happening. I mean, automotive news every week, there's something going on about women in the automotive industry. So
they really go out of their way too to make sure they identify like the 100 greatest, most important women in the business every year. They pick out, you know, younger women and have an event where they honor them as well. But the driving of cars, the working on cars, the knowing anything about cars, that when women are involved in that, they're pretty much a rare breed. I have a lot of friends who actually do that. I tried to hire a woman once for Jean Knows Cars, and for her, I like to give people a little, you know, when you hire people and you give them their test or whatever, I said, you need to do a video right now, change the oil in that car, and we're gonna do a video and then we'll post it and we'll see how you do and then I'll hire you. And I'll be damned. When she was done, she was completely covered with oil on her white t-shirt. And I didn't realize she was going right back to Seattle. She went right to the airport like that. She was so excited. She's a great person too, and still, you know, has her own shop full of cars. And I think there are more women that we don't know about that are totally into it. And it's all about, you know, you don't have to be strong. You just have to know how to use the tools.
And have the right tool. Have the right tool.
Not magic.
Lyn, there's another question for you. Lyn, there are stories of Janet Guthrie being unwelcome when she showed up to professional racing amongst the drivers. Did you feel the culture was more welcoming to you when you began your career?
It's funny. I observed and watched on TV when Janet went to Indy in the 70s, 77, 78, 79. And that was my observation. I thought, man, you know, they don't want her there. I mean, there was a real sense of that. And I was racing in SCCA then, and I was having a blast. So I didn't have that experience. I think timing is everything in the world. And even though I was racing in the 70s, I was racing amateur racing, you know, where everybody just kind of showed up and had their own cars and hung out, and it was no big deal. By the time I got to where it became a bigger deal, when I had Ford as a sponsor in the 80s, and then obviously in the 90s, things started to change culturally, I mean, in society. So I think she came along at a time when, you know, in the 70s, at a very high level in the 70s, I mean, it was a very tumultuous time for women. It was, you know, you couldn't even get a credit card in your own name in 1973 if you didn't have a man co-sign it. So it was like, it was just the 70s were really, really, really when the women were really starting to fight for equality. And even though we're still fighting, I think at that time the guys didn't want us around, and so didn't want us to have equality. So I didn't have that experience. And if I did, I didn't know it because it was happening and I didn't care.
What you said. You didn't care. You just made it happen for yourself. So I think that's a good message to give women as well, that if men don't listen, or if men give you a hard time, you just ignore it. Do what you.
I've always also said, unless somebody is giving me a hard time preventing me to go from where I am to where I got to go. In other words, if I know I'm here and I got to go there. If you're in my way and you're giving me a hard time, I got to deal with you. But if you're over there, I don't care, you know. So you got to pick your battles and pick your spots, and the rest of it, just let it go.
Wow. So guys, we're at $1,000 for the Chenard print.
Oh,
I love
awesome.
Your print is at $300. And we got 4 bids in. Kevin just donated $250. Thank you. So what a great group of people, honestly.
Can I tell a little story about that print really quick?
Sure.
Because that depiction of my father racing in his rookie Formula One race at the French Grand Prix in 1958, to put it into perspective, he had won Le Mans for the first time just 2 weeks before, and he was very entrenched in the Ferrari team at that point. But they were not giving him yet the opportunity to drive in a Grand Prix. And so his friend Joe Bonnier had a second 250F and said, "Phil, why don't you just drive my spare car?" And the team manager at Ferrari said, "Phil, if you drive that, you will never drive for Ferrari again." And my dad just had to call their bluff, and he got in the car anyway. And he had a great race. Carroll Shelby was also on the grid racing another Maserati, I believe. My dad finished 7th, the highest placing rookie, had a great race. Unfortunately, in that race, one of the Ferrari team drivers, Luigi Musso, had crashed and was killed. And it was also Fangio's, the great Juan Mel Fangio's last Grand Prix race. So it was a big event, and my dad didn't lose his drive at Ferrari. In fact, because of Musso's death, which was so tragic, as often as it was in the day, that's what got him into Formula One.
Wow, what a story around that encompasses that painting.
Yeah, I know. Just the times were so dramatic.
Didn't your dad help Dan get his ride at Ferrari?
He did. Yeah. Dan had written to my father.
Oh yeah.
Saying, "Phil, I'd really love to get over to Europe, and I see what you're doing, and I'm just driving in these local California events." And so my dad said, "Why don't you drive with me to Sebring?" Well, they drove all the way across the U.S. from California to Florida in an old Packard, and really got to know each other. And he met Luigi Canetti, the Ferrari importer, at Sebring. And that started the conversation going, and eventually led to Dan driving at Ferrari.
Derek, there's another question for you from Peter. Said your dad was known for collecting player piano rolls and for his passion for opera and classical music. It's an interesting intersection of the mechanical and the musical. Can you talk a little bit about his love of driving and how that combined with his passion for music, and has that rubbed off on you?
Oh, I wish Denise McCluggage was here to answer that one, because she could probably put it so succinctly together. You know, my father was a complex person, and he had many, many interests in life. It was music, it was classic cars, it was restoring old mechanical musical players. It was anything to keep himself busy. And of course, cars were his overall obsession and love in life. So I can't really say, except that his mother was really into music, and she wrote songs. She wrote Down at Miami Beach, a foxtrot back in the 1920s, and she was always drinking and singing songs, and a pretty wild woman. So I think he probably got some of that from her.
Right. So Deb, are we ready to announce the winners?
We are. Mike, do you have a picture of the two prizes that we're giving out? Can you put that up on the screen? Mike, are you there? It's the one of the Maserati gift, and also Lyn St. James's book. There we go. There we go. We did a random prize drawing from our guests today, and Lyn St. James's wonderful and incredible journey book is going to be personally autographed by Lyn, and we'll be sending it out to Lori Kellogg. So thank you, Lori, for joining us and for being with us today. And then for Maserati, we've got this wonderful leather gift of a passport holder, which hopefully you'll be able to use soon in the future, a wallet, and a key. I guess that's a luggage tag that goes with that. They're all in leather, and that's going to go out to James King. So thank you. And we will get your addresses. I think we have them in our registration, and we'll make sure you get them both.
I should say hi, Lori. That's my cousin.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
I want to say hi to James King, if it's the James King I know.
And I know James as well.
Yeah.
I have my own copy. I love it.
Great.
I love that everybody knows each other. I think it's remarkable. So any other questions before we sign off and enjoy our holiday week that's about to happen? I think we're good. Well, hey, I want to thank Deb. I want to thank you for creating this environment for us to really give back. And the content is so interesting. The automotive industry is something that I'm so proud of, you know, knowing about. And I wish I was a driver myself. Lyn and Derek and Jean, you guys are phenomenal. Maserati, Hagerty, thank you guys for being a sponsor. Any final words before we sign off? Jean, do you have any last minute words?
I am so happy that you did this, Deb. You have been such a force for Drive Toward the Cure, such a force in the industry. And I'll remember the day when we really met and we did the big gymkhana for all the women in the industry. Do you remember?
We did.
that?
Lisa Dunn is on. You taught her to never lift, and she's on this call.
I had to I was in the other seat and I kept screaming, stand on it, stand on it, stand on it. And then I grabbed the wheel and do it for her. And I don't think she ever got over that. But anyway, I just really appreciate what you do, as everyone else has said. This has been great. Thanks for inviting. I really appreciate it.
Thank you all. Thank you all for participating. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your support. Thanks for being your own way of being an automotive legend, each one of you. From the bottom of my heart, thank everyone for attending. We've got a week of blessings ahead of us, and hopefully we'll end the year with blessings. And just thank you.
If I can find a bag of raw cranberries, I will consider this whole week like a blessing to me. Just a bag of cranberries.
Yeah, thanks so much, you guys. Deb, thank you so much. From the time my dad got Parkinson's and needed that kind of care, and I saw how important it was to support, people with this disease that affects so many. To get to know Deb and to see the work and support she's putting into it, and to have Maserati, Hagerty on board to help make this happen, and it's a wonderful platform for us to continue sharing and pushing the message and getting support. So thank you to everybody.
And thank you, Maserati.
Yes, thank you, Cass. Thank you, Maserati. Thank you, Chris, for being a wonderful host for us today, playing along with us so well. And Mark,
oh my God,
you put the hat back on. You are.
Yeah, the hat looks great.
I thought you were number 43, Richard Petty, this whole time.
Yeah. Thank you.
And thank you to Hagerty for hosting us as well.
Yeah. No, thank you. Hector.
Do we have any final bids? We're currently at $350 on the Shelby print.
Congratulations. I will get that packaged up.
Awesome. High bidder there is Todd Lozier. And
actually, no, we've got 400 from Stephen for the Shelby print. It's in the question and answer room.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, you're right.
So, Todd Lozier, if you're still there and you really want it, let us know. Oh, there he is, 425.
425. I love it. All right, Stephen, are you still on? All afternoon.
We don't want to make you obligated, but feel free.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you so much for taking the time with us. We appreciate everyone. Appreciate you so much.
It was great to do it. Great to see everybody again, too.
Nice to see people I haven't seen in a while.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays. Thank you all.
Love to Alma, okay?
Will do.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. Thanks.